And buonasera a tutti. Good evening, y'all. Welcome back. It's episode number 46 of What's the Scoop? And the first one of the Major League Baseball offseason. We'll be discussing plenty of that, both what's potentially coming up within the Major League Baseball offseason and how we got here in this next 60 minutes. Looking forward to having y'all on tonight. As always, if there's something I'm not covering that you want to have discussed, that you have a question about, or you want to just chime in, whatever the case may be, banter, anything, you know how to jump on that chat, and look forward to hearing from y'all and getting some fun discussions going throughout the course of the next hour. So, excuse me. So, with that all being said, I'm sure it's no surprise to anybody that there's no other way to say it. I am incredibly tilted still about how Game 5 went in Major League Baseball in the World Series. I've watched over 1,000 baseball games probably in my life, or close to that, whether that's Yankees, whether that's being down here, the Atlanta Braves, whether that's Royals, where I live, whatever team, but obviously far and away mostly the Yankees. I have never seen something as pathetic on a big stage as I witnessed Wednesday evening. Whether it was in the fifth inning, most of us, I'm sure, saw the whole miscommunication between Cole and Rizzo about covering first base. Whether it was Aaron Judge, who had just had a fantastic, sort of rebound after starting off horribly offensively in the World Series, forgetting how to catch a fly ball and how to hold his glove to catch a fly ball in center field, which he's been playing all year and has played several times before this year. Whether it was absurd base running mistakes, which play right into the fact that analytically the Yankees were far and away the worst base running team this year. They got exposed as just frauds. That's the only way I can describe it. Very good team, very talented team, but when ready to go up against the LA Dodgers, and again, I'll eat my words. About a year ago or close to a year ago, I said that the Dodgers have not convinced me that they can win October the way that they've been winning December and January. I didn't foresee them going into Game 5 of the World Series and playing against a team that did not look like they belong on a Major League Baseball field for 4 innings. So my bad on that. That was not a foreseeable element to that. So I stand corrected, as I did not factor that in when I made those comments back almost a year ago about the LA Dodgers. That being said, it was atrocious to watch, whether that was as a fan, whether that was as somebody who cares a lot about the game itself, whether it's as somebody who, for a brief time in my life, got to play the game or, be a scorekeeper, bookkeeper, all these different things. It was so painful to watch. And the fact that miscommunication, whatever you want to call it, because there's a lot of ways that I would like to, that I think are more accurate to call it, but a lot of them I can't say on this show. The way that manifested itself between Rizzo and Cole, this is 2 veteran players, 2 of the best at their position, or at least Rizzo was before he got his concussions, 2 leaders on the team. And that happens in the World Series, in a game that you have to win. At home, no less. They hadn't even gone back to LA yet. That happened on your own field, in front of your own fans. Just awful. Just one of the most disgraceful things that you could see on a baseball field. And as a sports fan. And just, you going into this offseason, make sure because obviously there's 2 different type of realities that the Yankees have this offseason. I mean, there's more than 2, but in the sense of, it's the offseason where they re-sign Juan Soto. And there's the offseason where they don't re-sign Juan Soto. I think it's pretty obvious which one I'm rooting for. But you look forward, and you're probably not going to bring back Gleyber Torres. At least it's my expectation. You just declined the option for $17 million on Anthony Rizzo, paying him a $6 million buyout instead. So you don't know what you have at first base next year. I think it's very possible that they do bring him back at a lower salary, but right now he's not on your roster. He is a free agent right now. So you're looking at Ben Rice, maybe Oswaldo Cabrera. If I were them, and I said this before, if I were them and I were able to bring back Juan Soto, I would see about trying to see if he would be an option long term at first base, because I do not want to see, as soon as Stanton goes, I do not want to see another just black hole, not black hole at DH, but gumming up the works at DH and plugging the same guy in there and locking that into one player. I hate doing that. I hate that they've done it with Stanton. I don't want to see it for another 10 years with Juan Soto. So I don't know what they're going to do there. I don't know. I mean, we can assume that third base is still going to be Chisholm, but without Torres there, maybe they shift him back to second. I don't know. There's myriad ways this thing could go, and there's too many variables for me to even speculate too much at this point in time about specifics. But if you had told me going into the series that the Yankees had lost to the Dodgers, I wouldn't have surprised you at all. I wouldn't have been surprised at all. If you had told me that they lost in that way, there's no part of me that you could have convinced that actually happened. And also, I want to point out one more thing, and then I'm going to get to some of the comments because I know the chat's starting to get active. But I want to bring up one thing, and this didn't make a lot of headlines. They kind of got buried this week, and it still ticks me off. So, obviously, as a lot of us expected, in the aftermath of what happened, the pitchforks came out, and they went directly toward Aaron Boone and Brian Cashman. I'm not going to sit here and defend them. I'm not going to sit here and defend either one of them. You know my feelings about Boone. You know my feelings about Cashman. I don't need to belabor them another time. I will say this. Multiple people connected to the organization, I'll phrase it that way. I've heard from several different people at several different times in several different circumstances that the situation with regarding to Garrett Cole, Aaron Boone going out there and not regarding the Rizzo play, but about taking out Garrett Cole at 88 pitches, which Boone got blasted for. Cole, apparently, what I've been told is that Cole basically let Boone know that he didn't think he could keep going. I don't know how accurate that is. I will say that right now. I'm obviously I don't know from Boone or Cole himself. All I know is that several independent places I've heard from this past few days have said that Cole wanted to come out, was telling Boone he wanted to come out of the game, and basically Boone took the fall for Cole in that press conference. Don't know. Again, I obviously don't have a way to 100% confirm that, but if you haven't been made aware of that, just know that that is something that is real. That is something that is being, that has been, that I've gotten back from multiple people who have much closer to the ground than I am. Just getting into some comments here. Kurt Valenti says, Scoopsy, I've been waiting for this show. I bet you have just as much as I have. I didn't even need my caffeine tonight. That's how fired up I am. Jody says, fire Boone, get rid of the watch collection. I don't understand where that even came from. That became a thing in our group chat this past week. I don't know where that originated from, but okay. Rebound, he batted 150 in postseason. That's a rebound. I'm assuming you're talking about Judge. Rebound may not have been the optimal word to use in that setting. I was referring to the fact he hit a couple of homers when he wasn't able to get his power going earlier. So, kind of go over a fine-tooth comb with words that might not have been the most optimal word for me to use. So my apologies on that. Yankees can't run the bases, catch easy fly balls, and Judge can't hit in the postseason. I mean, yeah, and those are just three facts. That's, I'm not going to sit here and argue against things that we all know and we all can see, whether we're watching the game or looking at the information. Like, those are just three facts right now. Judge definitely seems a lot more to be going down the A-Rod pathway, where he's an incredible talent, but for some reason he's not able to get it consistently going in October to this point. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if he tries to do too much, but people keep telling me, or I keep reading people saying that he can't handle the big lights, which I don't know how you hit 60 home runs or almost 60 home runs or over 60 home runs 3 different times in New York if you can't handle the big lights. So I think that's a bit of a stretch, but I don't know what it is. Again, I don't know if he tried to alter his swing path and if it got all screwed up. I don't know if he was battling an injury that we weren't told about. Maybe he didn't even tell the team about. I have no idea. But it was awful, and they really needed more than just Soto and Stanton, which is really the only two guys they had to rely on all postseason. Other guys came up at different times, but consistently it was Stanton and Soto who were getting the job done. And that is just not enough when you're paying so many other guys so much money that you can't have just those two coming through. And everything you're saying happened under whose watch? I already mentioned Brian Cashman. So your leadership is a disgrace. Soto is gone. You know it. I don't know it, so I'm not going to pretend that I do. I know that he's going to listen to. I know that the Mets are going to be involved. I know that the LA Dodgers have been heavily reported to be involved. I've heard a lot the last couple of days that the Toronto Blue Jays are going to try and get in on that. I think that when you talk about figures like $600 to $700 million, I think that winnows the field pretty quickly. But I think there's no team that shouldn't at least do their due diligence and see if they're able to get involved. I don't think that there's more than probably 3 or 4 teams that are going to be willing to pay that kind of money. And I do think it'll ultimately come down to the two teams we've expected all along, which are the two teams in New York, the Yankees and the Mets. But I don't know. But yeah, I'm not going to say that I know what's going to happen. And I'm not even going to say that I have a strong feeling one way or the other, because I had a good feeling that he was going to stay. But then I see something like that happen, and I'm just like, he very well might look at that and say, geez, like, I don't know if, winning a championship, if I come back here and we run it back with much of the same team, I don't know that I'm closer to winning a championship here than I am in New York, because than I am in Flushing, because Flushing looks like they're on the ascend, and the Yankees, that could have very well been their peak, and that is a scary and a thing that doesn't make me happy to think, but that may be a reality that he's looking at. Swifty, oh my Lord. Nikki says, Swifty Scoops. How you doing, Nikki? Good to see you. Roy Osborne, hey there, Swifty Scoops, LOL. Kurt says, then Cole should be gone immediately. 88 pitches for a $30 million a year pitcher. Get out of here. That's a disgrace. Also something I agree with. I said going into this postseason, and I think I probably said it back during the regular season, if you don't come out of this with a World Series championship, or at least I was willing to give a little bit of breathing room that didn't come away with having won the World Series. This outcome and the way that it actually played out, that is the epitome of a failure. That is the epitome of you're not getting, understanding or love from me that you made it to the World Series. You made it to the World Series, and then you had the absolute most pathetic performance I've seen on a World Series field. And I've watched every World Series since 2009. I don't really remember that one, but I'm pretty sure that was the first one that I watched. The only World Series I didn't watch was that one year when it was Red Sox versus, I think it was the Red Sox Cardinals one. I think I didn't really watch any of. But anyway, that's not important. But yeah, anyway, I go into that space because I said coming out of that, if that's the way it went down, you've got to be willing to consider everything. And I know that that's like an easy thing to say, but especially if you don't bring back Juan Soto, if Juan Soto goes somewhere else, I'm not saying rebuild, because you cannot get away with rebuilding in New York. And frankly, and you still have a talented enough team that I don't think that's a good idea. That I don't think that that's necessary. I shouldn't say I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's necessary. However, you've got to be willing to have some difficult conversations. And the first one you've got to be willing to have is Garrett Cole. I think getting rid of Stanton would be ridiculous, because he's proven he's probably your biggest bat in the big moments. I think getting rid of him would be asinine. But beyond that, I mean, Cole is 34 years. Now, also, since I'm talking about Garrett Cole, I want to clear something up, because I know there's been a lot of confusion about this with regard to his contract. So I want to clear this up real quick for everybody. So Garrett Cole in 2019 signed a 9-year, $324 million contract, and he opted out of that today. The way that the opt-out works is that the Yankees can nullify the opt-out by guaranteeing a 10th year at $36 million, which is the same amount he's making every single year of the contract. So that would essentially be become a 10-year, $360 million deal, or starting in 2025, a 5-year, $180 million deal. So that's the decision the Yankees have to make, and they have to make it by tomorrow night. I've already heard some intel that they're expected to make that decision so that and bring back Cole on that contract, but it hasn't been confirmed by the team, so anything can happen at this point. And if and when they do that, I do think that that's a difficult conversation you have to have. Obviously, I'm not saying that they should just let him walk, because I still think you can get something decent for him, especially if you're willing to eat some of that money to make a trade, to facilitate a trade. But that's a conversation you got to be willing to have. And moreover, I want these in-between guys that, I always go back to Oswald Peraza, but like, they have to figure out, are they going to go all in on these guys that they've kept out of trades? And if so, then some of these veterans should be able to be moved off of and let go. I'm looking at Torres, LeMahieu. They already moved off Rizzo, at least for the time being. I would keep Jazz for sure. Definitely wouldn't get rid of Wells. I could see trading Trevino. But so those are all things that you have to consider, and because if you're going to double down on those guys that you weren't keen on trading, then that's the route you should go, is to see what you've got with those guys for going into next year. And if not, then what the heck are you keeping them in AA and single A for when there's guys on the trade block this offseason? If a big arm comes available, if somebody who's able to play, third base or left field, becomes available, these are guys that you go after, and you part with these guys who don't have a path to playing time consistently in the next 3 years in New York to begin with. And I always use Peraza as the example, but how many trades for 4 years have we heard did we hear that they didn't want to include him? And he's been missing in action for 2 years. He basically became a bench bat, if that. A bench bat is not an untouchable player. Roy Osborne said, but button line. Oh, I think bottom line is the best team won. Rest is excuses, in my opinion. So, only thing I'm going to say to that is there's a difference between excuses and explanations. I'm explaining a lot of things, or at least from the way that I see it in my perspective. I'm not making excuses for Jack for anything. Excuse me. But I don't also think that it's unfair to kind of break in and kind of look at what has happened to get them to here, and where things could potentially be headed going forward. I think if you're not willing to look at that, then I think you're not going to be able to really be honest about what lies ahead. Without Soto, they won't even make the playoffs next year. I don't disagree with that. What's Scoops? Hello. What's up, Scoops? I don't blame Boone on Cole, but game one, bringing Nestor in that situation, not Nestor's fault, but man, my grandma used to have the tastiest meatballs. Oh, that might be the funniest comment I've ever gotten on the show. Yeah. So now I'm craving pasta after the show, but when am I not? But yeah, again, I talked a little bit already, I think, about the Nestor versus Tim Hill situation, and I didn't watch that unfold thinking, why isn't Tim Hill going in there? That wasn't how I only looked at it as for what it was, which was Cortez going in. Again, and I have read analyses and one thing or another of from different people that I respect, of the thought process and why they didn't agree with the thought process, not just because it didn't work out. I mean, that's obvious, but why they didn't agree with the thought process. And I am more understanding of it now than I originally was. Not that I originally, loved it to begin with, but I'm more willing to say, yeah, I don't understand, or I didn't like that. Not that I didn't like it, because I don't want to be like playing revisionist history, but I acknowledge now that it probably wasn't the best move in that moment, is probably the best way that I can phrase what I'm trying to say. Nikki says I was going to wear my Judge jersey on Halloween with the Guardians, regardless of the World Series outcome. So I added top of the fifth inning to my shirt. Oh, yeah. I don't know if you'd be able to, but if any of y'all have like Nicole like access to like her social media or anything, go look at those pictures of the costume that she did. Because I said something on social media after the game. I think it was the next day because I asked any of my friends. I literally went dark for like 12 hours. I didn't talk to nobody for like 12 hours, but I sent out something basically saying I was gonna dress as something scary for Halloween, but I can't figure it out. All right, but I couldn't figure out how to dress as the Yankees defense in the top of the fifth inning. And then she responds with, "I figured out how," and she sends me the picture. So that was hilarious. Tips to or props to Nikki on that one. Dan tip. They intentionally walked someone to pitch to Judge. How embarrassing in that. Biggest fraud is sports. So what do you do? I'm assuming you're moving on from either the manager or GM or both. No, I mean, you got to do something. You got to do something. Again, I still put the onus on the players more than because again, this is not some sort of video game where Cashman and Boone are sitting up there and they're responsible for the ridiculous lack of baseball IQ that's on the field. So yeah, I've said it a million times. Yeah, you can move off of Cashman if you have a good idea for who to bring in. Yeah, of course, if you can find an upgrade or find something you can think is an upgrade, I'm all down for that. What I am going or what I stand on though is that should not be a route to give passes or to blame shift or buck pass off of the players to just dump it on Cashman for no apparent I shouldn't say for no reason, but I think that the way that the blame is divvied up, I think that much more of it in my mind goes on the players than goes on either of those two. But again, Cashman in New York, it comes down to titles and all that people see when it comes down to it, which is very fair, is 2024 did not result in a title. That's no matter what the circumstances are, people are going to say that's the situation. And again, like I've been saying for a while, if they can find somebody that they think is a good heir apparent or a good replacement, of course you make that move. I'm not going to sit here and pound the table for it because I don't have a great idea in my head, and I don't think I'm not one who likes to clamor for change's sake. Mr. Ronquillo says, "Good evening, Scoop." Good evening, Mr. Ronquillo. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a good week. I love that Bo Nix picture as always. Why did your top prospect not get one at bat in the World Series? Excuse me. Again, I don't have an answer for that either. I wish I did because I was kind of wondering the same thing. Yeah, the only thing that I could really come up with is something regarding that the injury that he had over the summer, or late summer, I guess. But again, if it's similar to what I said about Peraza, if these guys, which again, Dominguez has a much higher ceiling and a much higher talent level than Peraza, I'm not disputing that. But if you're going to put these guys on the playoff roster, then find places for them. Whether you brought him on for his defense or his bat or his, whatever the case may be. Now, perhaps they brought him on in case they didn't like what they saw from Verdugo defensively, and Verdugo did play a very solid defense for the most part in the playoffs. So perhaps, but not even finding, like you said, not even finding one plate appearance for him. I don't have a great hypothesis for that. What are you doing, DJ? What are you doing with DJ? I mean, I called for them to make a move, severing ties with DJ 6 months ago. I don't understand why he's still on the roster. He's not anybody that you would want up in a big moment at the plate. He certainly is not somebody that you want up at a big moment on the infield. If he were, you wouldn't have traded for a guy who had never played third base in his life to play for third base instead of DJ. I'm guessing now that the only reason why he's still on the roster is because of his contract. And I don't think that that's going to even be a deterrent long-term in terms of them getting rid of him, because we saw that they're willing to make those types of moves with Aaron Hicks and Jacoby Ellsbury. Soto is the face of your team. He's his best player on your team, second best in baseball behind Ohtani. If he's gone, it is over for the Yankees. I think that think that's just like a reworded version of what we just talked about. But yeah, no, there's definitely, again, it's hard to foresee going into 2025 what a competitive World Series caliber team for the Yankees looks like in that situation. Again, the one outcome I could envision would be if they went on a behemoth type of spending spree this offseason, akin to what they did in 2008 with Teixeira, Sabathia, Burnett, those guys. So that is something that I could see as I don't even want to call it a plan B, because I think it should be so far past the bringing in Soto and then adding guys in around him. And let me make this clear. I'm not saying bringing in Soto should be your last move. I'm not saying you should do one or the other. I'm just saying that if you don't bring in Soto, you dang well better be bringing in some other heavy hitters, whether that's literally in the lineup or on the mound. But you cannot you cannot just run it back. Just bring back Soto would be huge, but that can't be your only move. And especially if you don't bring him back, then you better be ready to have a fairy tale offseason for this team, or 2025 is going to start off in an ugly way. Mike drop Kenny, that can't be funnier than Sleepy with these scoops. It definitely has. So you still haven't answered. Who do you get rid of, GM, manager, or both? I thought I did answer that, but if I'm getting rid of either one of them, I'm getting rid of Cashman first for sure. Fill in the blank. Juan Soto will be a blank next season. My gut is still going with he's going to go back to the Yankees. My gut is still going with the Yankees. I don't know, because I can't see Toronto suddenly, just especially because, excuse me, they already have somebody who's going to become who is basically looked at as a bat first, great bat, and not a ton else, or at least significantly weaker in other areas in Vladito. So unless they trade him, which is certainly possible, but if you're trading him, why are you suddenly going to flip around and sign Soto? That just seems weird to me. So I don't really buy that. The Mets, the Mets are definitely the team that concerns me the most in terms of being competitive for him. But I don't know. I've seen a lot more bark than bite when it comes to those really high end free agents. That Steve Cohen, he can absolutely afford it, and it wouldn't surprise me for 1 second if he did. As of right now, my scale is tipping slightly more toward the Yankees right now. It's very close. Mr. Osborne says it's very close to the Final Four in NASCAR. The guys are rust and are favored to the Final Four are now under the. I'll be very honest with you, Mr. Osborne. I don't know what that means. If you could please explain that to me, I'll be happy to share it with everybody. Kenny says, give me your list of 3 free agents the Yankees sign in the offseason to get into the World Series. A, Burns replaces Cole. B, Santander replaces Soto. C, Bregman replaces Gleyber Torres. Jazz moves to second base. Okay, so my list of 3 for the Yankees to sign, I think I can't tell if this was if they don't sign Soto or if it's regardless. Because if it's regardless, then I think Soto obviously has to be number 1. I have heard a lot about Santander being kind of the main go-to if it's not him. But I also have heard about Paul Goldschmidt being a possibility. I mean, I know that wouldn't solve outfield, but I'm just listing names of guys that I've heard them being in on at this early stage. But let me think about that for a second. I'm going to get to some other ones, and I'll come back to that in a second. Jody says, I pray 3 doesn't happen. Very fair. Says, that should say win the World Series. My buddy Alex is chiming in. Hope you're doing well, Alex, and hope Crystal's doing well, and that the dog is feeling a little bit better. Says, what's up, Rocket Man? Kenny says, that should say win the World Series. DJ is done. So when you're batting 130 in the lineup, 14 Ks out of 20 put bats Doesn't analytics say bench or move down in lineup? Fake news. Was that Chat GPT? I don't really know what I don't even really know what that says. So wait, the blaming the players, that's not how sports works. Coaches and guess, I think that means GMs, but you're playing the planners and saying the GM manager stays what? I'm still trying to figure out what. I think he's saying that, I'm blaming the players more than the coach in the lineup, and he's saying that coaches and GMs get fired all the time. I know, but this is I'm you're asking my opinion. This is my opinion. This is my perspective. Yes, I do differ sometimes from the way that, other teams would do things or the way that other people would do things, and that's fine. I stand by what I said. Toronto was second in the Ohtani sweepstakes. Yeah, I know, but I also don't have a huge belief in their, I don't want to say ability, but their commitment, I guess, to getting that done, especially with where they're at in their timeline right now. I guess you'd say their timeline of contention right now. They just came off a year that I think, because of what was going on in Chicago and Miami and Oakland and other places, I think it got overlooked how terrible Toronto was this year. I would honestly be surprised, especially if he really wants to win. I feel like Toronto would have to do almost what San Diego tried to do with Aaron Judge and just blow away everybody else financially. And I'm talking about, like, might have to go into the 800 million range to make that happen, because I just don't see why, if he cares about winning, I don't see why he would take that over not just the Yankees, but the Dodgers, the Mets. I don't see it, because one elite bat is not going to drastically turn around the garbage that they were putting out this year. Washington Nationals, Kurt and Scoops, they have money to spend this year. Team high up with CJ Abrams. Yeah, I did hear a little bit about that potentially. That was more speculation than it was actually anything I've legitimately heard recently. But that wouldn't surprise me at all. I definitely could see him again. He did win the title there. I'm sure he's still got friends there. Like I've said on the show multiple times, there's definitely a significant tip of the cap I have to give to the Washington Nationals. I think they've done by far the best rebuild that we've seen since the Atlanta Braves. So I wouldn't count them out for sure. I think that that's a really good possibility, Kenny. You can't pay Soto because you're wasting money on multiple-time MVP who's going to get another MVP and is going to be a Hall of Famer and is perhaps the best hitter, whatever you want to say, the best hitter statistically that the team has seen in the last 30 years. I will never call that a waste of money. I'm sorry. Yes, he was painful to watch in the ALCS and particularly in the early rounds. They don't get there. They don't get to where they got to in the position that they're in without Judge in the lineup. Like, if you want to take away Judge in the postseason, fine, but you're also taking him away in the regular season, and there ain't no way the team is what they ultimately were able to be, even with that garbage 6 weeks that they had in the middle of the summer. There's absolutely no way that they were in the position that they were to get the top seed without Judge. So yeah, it's fine if you want to look at him or look at the team without him, but you got to do it across the board. You got to apply what you're applying in one spot. You have to apply consistently. Jody says, I seen Soto will get around 12 to 15 years, $705 million. Are you good with that? Yes. I am. We're looking at potentially our generation's version of Ted Williams, who just turned 26 last week. Absolutely. If that's what it takes to keep him, yes. Unless you're talking, I can't even really say what a number would be where I'd be saying this is where I would be uncomfortable going to, because it's really hard to, once it gets to that point, are you really going to suddenly say we have a line in the sand? I mean, you're talking about $700 million. You're suddenly going to say 750 is too much. Like that, to me, that's like, you already know that this is going to take a chunk out. And so I think at that point, you just go, you know what, to the wall. Anyway, I want to get back to Kenny's question real quick, because he asked about free agents and excuse me, just a couple of the guys who I would potentially look at. Obviously, I talked about Soto. People have talked about Blake Snell. I really don't like that idea for the same reasons I didn't like it last year. I definitely think if you're looking at a starting pitcher, I think it makes a lot of sense to go after a guy like Corbin Burns. If you're looking for somebody who's a little bit, I don't want to say cheaper necessarily, but somebody who is more of that second tier and you're going to supplement him with other pieces, I'd be very interested to see if they would be looking into bringing back Eovaldi if he drops his player option in his current deal. Max Fried, I think, is somebody they might consider. He's one of the older pitchers. I wouldn't be surprised if they wanted to go after Jack Flaherty. Again, they had a deal to acquire Jack Flaherty in place at the deadline, and then backed out of it due to injury concerns. Obviously, we saw him play in the postseason for LA. Wouldn't surprise me at the age of 29 if he's someone involved. So for my three guys, just to answer your question, I'll go Soto, Burns, and Flaherty. Those will be my three. Oh, you said without Soto. I'm so sorry. So without him, you're definitely going to have to throw an outfielder on that list. But instead of Santander, just since so many people are saying him, I'm going to go with the guy who killed New York a couple of times. I'm going to go with Teoscar Hernandez. Kurt says, wait, how on earth does Boone keep his job? Did you watch the same World Series as everyone else? Yes, I did. Excuse me. And again, I blame the people who are out there actually doing the job. Boone didn't cause them to forget how to freaking catch a fly ball or how to, communicate between two veterans at starting pitcher and first base. If you want to fire him, fine. I don't think that firing him is going to make a difference. I think what makes a difference is either improving the talent in the roster, or bringing up guys from the pipeline and seeing what they're able to do and developing them in the majors. I think those are the two things that actually make a difference. I think firing Boone just for the sake of firing him and just to quell very online fans on X for 15 minutes, I don't see where that's going to make a massive improvement. I just don't, because again, I don't see a wealth of people who I think, oh, that's definitely going to be an upgrade. But again, as I've said before, the guy I would target if they did do that, David Ross. So I'll bring that back up. Points, the drivers were favored or under the cut line in points based upon the. Oh, okay. So it's kind of like golf in that regard, I guess, with the cut. And am I kind of understanding that a little bit? And Kurt, oh boy. So if you're blaming the players, then Judge, Cole, Torres should all be gone. I already said I don't think they're bringing back Torres, and I already said I'd listen on Cole. They failed this offseason, so players are the reason. GM back, manager back, and those players back, then what are you changing? Excuse me. I mean, first of all, like I said, they're already losing a bunch of guys in free agency to begin with. Torres is going to be gone. Clay Holmes going to be gone. Rizzo looks like he's going to be, at least is a good chance he's going to be gone, because he just they just declined his option, which was for $17 million. So again, like I said, the changes that I'm making, yeah, like you named 3 players, and 2 of them I said I wouldn't bring back Torres, and I said I would look to see what I could get for Garrett Cole and see if that was a viable move. I'm not just going to dump him for the best offer. I'm going to see if I can get something that is more valuable to me in 2025 than Garrett Cole. But Garrett Cole, excuse me, sorry, but Garrett Cole is not somebody you just toss away for a bag of tuna. Soto, According to Jody, Soto already has a ring. He only cares about money now. Again, it's quite possible. I would hope. My mentality has always been that it's sports is about championships. If you're not playing for that, then what do you? I mean, I guess playing for money, I guess, counts. But I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm a fan and not a player. But I'm sure that he will likely go for the biggest contract. But to say that he doesn't care about winning and he would take it from a pumpkin organization like the Tampa Bay or like the Toronto Blue Jays are right now over New York, if the dollars were equal, I really just would have a hard time understanding that. Judge is not a waste of Judge is not a waste of money, according to Nicole. Nicole, I agree with you. Best hitters, career postseason 130. No, they don't get to World Series without Stanton and Soto. That might be true, but that doesn't negate the correctness of what I said. Is $1 billion too much? I mean, obviously the idea of paying that for any professional athlete to me is absolutely absurd. Again, I don't really know where the cutoff is for me. The max number that we've really heard is around that sort of $700 to $800 million mark. So that's kind of what I've assumed it's going to be. Obviously, the concept of $1 billion is, again, just insane for anybody, in my opinion. If that's what the market comes up to, then that's a really hard decision to make either way. I think, obviously, because that's just an absurd amount of money to, again. I'll put it this way. I'd have to see the duration of the contract, because the longest contract that's ever been signed as a free agent, I believe, is 14 years, I want to say. So if we're talking a much longer deal, if we're talking like 18 million, 18 years, 19 years, something like that, then that's, that obviously from an average annual value standpoint looks different than, 14 for $1 billion. So I think how the AAV looks would be impacting my answer to that question. And I know it's insane to me that I even just didn't say no right off the rip for that, but that's where we're at in terms of sports, and where we're at in terms of the fact of the matter is the Yankees need Soto more than Soto needs the Yankees. It's just a fact right now. The Yankees do not have the leverage in this situation. They didn't have a ton of leverage, with Aaron Judge, and they don't have a ton of leverage with Juan Soto. Just the way that it is, stars run the games. Alex says, there we go. Alex says Judge is a waste of money. I mean, I know you're a Mets fan, but I don't know if we were watching the same season. Should the Yankees sign Jason Giambi in the offseason? I feel like that commercial that used to be on like 10, 12 years ago, where Andre Dawson jumps out of the Wrigley Field and goes, "What year is it?" Because I am a little bit surprised that he's not, somewhere as a hitting coach in the major leagues, though. I don't know if I'd say surprised, but I could see it for sure. Interested in Kikuchi? According to Jody's asking, interested in Kikuchi? Not really. If I did bring him in, that would be sort of my. I don't know. It'd be kind of like the last dish at Thanksgiving meal for me. Like it's nice to have it, but I could definitely live without it. That's kind of what I look at him as. Like, I don't think that he's going to be a major needle mover for me. Filling out the rotation, sure, but I would not want them to come away and say one of their big moves this offseason was Yusei Kikuchi. Nicole says Boone isn't going anywhere. Yeah, and again, whether you like it or not, that's pretty much what I believe. I have no reason to believe otherwise. Roy says yes, kinda. We've got a spoon. Spoon. We've got a bot in the chat here, guys. So I apologize. Just handle that real quickly. Nicole Gizzy says, if Harrison Bader was still with the Yankees, do you think that would have made a difference in the World Series outcome? I really like that question. I was a huge Harrison Bader fan. I think that he is what you want in a center fielder very much, and obviously the Mets agreed with me, and they had him, and he did well for them. Difference in I have to say yes, and the reason why I'll say that is because two of the issues that happened in Game 5 were relevant to center field. Now, again, I'm not saying that you replace Judge with Bader. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that if you had Bader, you're probably putting him at center field and you're probably putting Judge elsewhere. Maybe that's putting Soto in left. Maybe that's putting Judge in right. Maybe that's DHing Soto and putting Judge in right. But maybe that's putting Judge in left. But you're putting Bader in center field. And that I'm willing to bet if he were in center field, that specific play doesn't happen, and therefore some of what ensued thereafter, I believe, doesn't happen as well. So I think actually I didn't expect to say it when I first read the question, but yes, I do actually think that could have made a difference. Jody is right. It's about the money, just like any other sport. Judge is Mr. Regular Season. Can't strike out as much as he did in the postseason. Say he's worth the money. Pressure got to him, and it shouldn't with a player's talent. Dropping a ball in World Series is another example. I'm at a loss for why he has been so bad in October. Like I said, I don't think you can draw a direct causal link between that and being unable to handle the pressure. Because again, how many years has he been in New York? I think been 8 years, 9 years in New York. The big games that he's played in, again, they would not have some of the postseason and late in the season opportunities that they've had without him. So, that's fine. Mr. Ronquillo says, I was a big fan of first baseman Paul Goldschmidt before he went to the St. Louis Cardinals. I think if you're looking for somebody, I think he'd be a really good idea as a replacement for Anthony Rizzo. If you're looking for a different first baseman who can still hack it, hopefully not like the former coach of the Broncos, but who is who's still able to hack it both at first base and at the plate. Somebody who's a little bit younger, but it's still a veteran presence. Somebody who knows what it's like to win and knows what being a leader in a clubhouse in a winning clubhouse is. I think Goldschmidt would be probably my if they go externally for a first baseman and it's not Rizzo. I know a lot of people have talked about Christian Walker, but I think the concept of Paul Goldschmidt would be a very good idea. And I'm not in on the Pete Alonso talk like some people are. Ozer says, yo, Hot Wheels. I don't know who Ozer is, but good to have you on from YouTube. Hope you're doing well. Glad to have you on. Judge went cold. This is baseball. D-Bird, hope you're doing well on YouTube. Says, Judge went cold. This is baseball. Unfortunate outcome, but Yankees came together and played well. Not to change subjects. Change the subject all you want. I mean, like I said, I like interacting with y'all and hearing what y'all want to ask or talk about. How do we feel about the Eagles down the road here? Been a weird first half. So, knock on wood, if I have, there we go. It looks like we're finally getting past the doldrums of the turnover problem that Jalen Hurts was having. Now, please, Jalen, don't go tomorrow and make me look like an ass for saying that. But if that's the case, and if they keep feeding the ball to Saquon, who has done what I thought he was going to do with a better O-line, with better weapons, and not having to be, the lead guy because he does, we think, have a competent, successful quarterback behind him. He hasn't looked like it a couple times earlier on in the season, but still looks like a significant upgrade from who he had in the past. So in that situation, I think that's all helped. Obviously, he got back A.J. Brown. He got back a couple of the guys who had been banged up. I definitely think that helped as well. So I feel pretty solid. I definitely think that the games against the Commanders are going to be more challenging whenever they end up happening, either regular season, postseason, or thereafter. The Commanders are just a much more competent, not just team, but organization. And they got a legitimate quarterback now. My guy, Jaden Daniels, unfortunately ended up in Washington. So I still look at this as a team that I believe can and should make the playoffs. I don't think it's going to necessarily be, a team that's going to turn around and become the one seed favorite heavily walk away that they look like they were last year. But definitely, I think this is a better team than they looked like the first 3 weeks of the season or the end of last season. Ozer Beck says, "Give me some latte." Not sure what that means. As long as Boone has the contract with Rolex, he isn't going anywhere. I don't. Where did this obsession come from with Boone's freaking watches? Y'all were talking about that this whole week during in the group chat, and I couldn't follow to save my life. I am so confused with all that. I think Harrison Bader needs to get some advice from you, Scoot. He does not need any advice from me. He was fantastic. I love watching him. I was so excited when New York got him. I was, I had a different opinion than a lot of Yankees fans did about that trade. I stand by that. Unfortunately, things happened the way that they did, but you can't play revisionist history. You can't Monday morning quarterback it with certain things and act like you could have foreseen how certain things played out. And if you say that you can, then you're just, I think, playing around with a certain level of honesty. Kurt says, elite players are elite in the postseason. When it matters, you either have it or you don't. Kenny says, same Michael. I would welcome him to New York any day. I think that was referring Goldschmidt, and yep, we're all in agreement on that. Alex says, when Soto signs with the Mets, oh boy, what direction will the Yankees head in? So I definitely think that Teoscar Hernandez becomes a significant part of the picture there. Definitely think an arm becomes a significant part of the picture there. If I had to make not just who I would want, but if I had to make a prediction, I would say Flaherty, Hernandez, and I think that there'd probably be a trading included there too. I can't see them going for 3 major free agents who are going to get as much money as those guys are. I think they would rather do 2 and then trade some prospects for a younger player who may have a little more control. It seems like they would probably want to augment that. But then again, if you're not paying Soto, then you've got a lot of that extra money. So I would like to see them spend on more than just 2 guys. But if you wanted me to make a realistic prediction, I think I would say Hernandez, Flaherty, and some sort of major trade. Kenny says, Scoops, Aaron Boone had a different color watch on every game World Series. That was the joke. Excuse me. Okay. Yeah, I'll be honest. I was not paying attention to that at all. I really wasn't. But that is funny. I guess it's like a little bit of a meme that I guess was going on that I missed, I guess. But that is funny. And my buddy Alex says, "What you doing?" I'm talking to y'all on this show. I don't know how else to answer that. But that's caught up finally on the comments, guys. Y'all have been super active today. I really appreciate it. Appreciate all the questions. Some of them, obviously, some very hard-hitting questions, and I appreciate it. Definitely very much lived up to what I anticipated it would be like after that this cataclysmic implosion on Wednesday night. I keep seeing people say it's 145 days until, I don't know if it was spring training or opening day, but one of the two. And I don't know that a lot of fans are going to be over what happened even by then. So we'll have to see. And a lot of it's going to be either mollified or exacerbated by what we see henceforth. I'm going to shift away from baseball for a second, just because something really caught my attention last week. And it's not like major breaking news type of stuff, but it's just something that I thought was cool, and I wanted to bring it up. So for my friends out there who are NBA guys, I don't know if y'all saw this, but this was a couple weeks ago, and I was watching clips of NBA post-game interviews and such, and the LA Lakers, and this ties back to a question I was asked a while ago by Kurt. Kurt, if you're still watching, I'm going to kind of give an addendum to an answer I gave you a while ago on one of your basketball questions. And that was what you asked me, what my thoughts were on hiring JJ Redick by the LA Lakers. And the interview. So it was a JJ Redick interview after a game, and I guess he had come out, and I guess I'm guess that they had a rebound that went out of bounds, and he had grabbed it, and he talked about noticing how the texture and the feel of a brand new basketball was so different, and that he was going to contact the league and ask if and request that they can play with worn-in basketballs. And he was talking about why are we playing with a brand new basketball? Why are we not playing with a worn-in ball? You let the players get a chance to pick a good basketball. It's a different. He says anybody who's played and taken shots with a basketball knows it's a different feel when it's a slick new brand new ball as opposed to a worn-in one. And again, I would not consider in any way, shape, or form. I would not consider basketball, my top sport. But just as somebody who does enjoy basketball, and I obviously haven't gone to Seton Hall, went to a lot of games. I did the manager's stuff that I did when I was younger, and it was just fascinating to me for all the time that I've watched, not at different levels, and just that's just not something that I've really heard from a coach. Like you hear a lot of the same things over and over again about matchups, or I feel like a lot of the times some of the coaching press conferences can get repetitive, and you hear a lot of the same coach speak over and over again. But sometimes I'll watch things and they'll just stick out to me, and that really stuck out to me. Just the nuance, the intricacies, the hyper attention to detail. He laughed after, and he was like, "You think I'm joking? I'm neurotic about this stuff." So when I heard that, when I watched that, I'm increasingly intrigued to see what the LA Lakers are going to look like under JJ Redick as a head coach. So since I saw that and I remembered your question, I wanted to just jump that in to follow that up, because it when I saw that, it made me think of what you had asked me back when the transaction was first made. Mr. Ronquillo says Shohei Ohtani had the word. Sorry. Shohei Ohtani had to win a World Series before Aaron Judge. And obviously, I'm not surprised that the Dodgers won just based on their roster. Very happy for Ohtani. Very happy for Freddie Freeman, who just was an absolute, not human during the postseason, especially with everything that he went through. I'm not going to get into the story because I don't want to leave any details out. But go if you have a chance, go and look at what happened with Freddie Freeman and his family this year, and kind of what they've gotten through. If a team was going to manhandle the Yankees and a team was going to win, from a person standpoint, I'm happy that it was the Dodgers and people like Freddie Freeman, people like Shohei Ohtani, who I've said repeatedly is probably my favorite non-Yankee in Major League Baseball, or at least definitely in the top tier. So yeah, but again, I don't buy the situation where it's all of a sudden the bright lights that you were under in New York, again, hitting walk-offs, playing in pen and chase games, playing in, hitting I think it was 3 home runs that he hit in a couple games in the postseason. He was terrible during the postseason, especially from a batting average standpoint. No, that's not slipping through anybody's fingers. But to suddenly call him a waste of money, to suddenly call him, I think that there's way too much, and this is one thing about Yankees social media. There is way too much black and white thinking and way too much black and white analysis, in my opinion. I'm not calling out the guys here, but just from what I've seen on there and people saying like those extreme things, to me, it's he needs to be better in those moments. I mean, that's why he's captain. That's why they re-signed him. That is just a fact. But no, that's not a bad contract now, especially with the numbers that he's put up. You can argue that he's one of the numbers that he's put up in his career. You can argue that he's one of the few guys who actually made the return on the investment. And yes, I know that it's weighted differently in the postseason. I am not disputing that. I am not delegitimizing that. But there's a gray area in between those two polarized schools of thought, and I landed in that gray area. I don't land on either extreme where it's, oh, there's, Judge is, being abysmal in the postseason is no big deal. Definitely not something that I agree with, nor is the polar opposite either. With that taking up at the buzzer, Mr. Ronquillo says, great show tonight, Scoop. I can't thank you enough, Mr. Ronquillo. And everybody who was involved tonight. We had a ton of people watching. I think we hit some of the highest live streaming numbers that I've seen. We had a ton of comments. I want to go through and thank everybody, but honestly, just there was so many different people, including new people, and I can't thank y'all enough for that. This was such a fun show, one of the most fun shows that I've done. Again, thank y'all for tuning in, whether it was just watching, or asking questions, or just kind of leaving commentary, or just getting under my skin and bantering. Every bit of it makes the show as great as it is. It makes me look forward to Saturday nights as much as I do. So thank y'all so very much, and I'm looking forward to episode 47 next week. Same Scoop time, same Scoop channel.